Hello, I'm Adam, your BOO of BlampCo Incorporated, and happy spooky season, everyone. It's a time of year to dress in your favorite cosplay, dip your loved ones in pumpkin spice like the Salem witches of yore, and indulge in the All-Hallowtide tradition of honoring the dearly departed by eating chocolate until your doctor weeps thick tears. I love horror movies, always have since the days of growing up on Jersey and spending every Friday night with my Jersey friends raiding Blockbuster Video for 3 DVDs for a tenner. That's a good deal, and choosing only the gloriously terrible looking ones. Shout out to The Ginger Dead Man, Evil Never Tasted So Good, The Greenskeeper, It's Par for the Corpse, and Jack Frost. Not that one, this one. I really get into horror movies. I want to be thoroughly spooked. In fact, when I'm watching a horror movie, what scares my friends the most isn't the movie itself, but rather how much the movie makes me jump, making them jump like a catastrophe of cowardly dominoes. You can tell a lot about a person by the culture they consume. So with that being said, very sorry in advance. I'm Adam from BlampCo Incorporated, and here are my 10 favorite horror movies. Boo. Number 10, Late Night with the Devil. While I've absolutely succumbed to the middle-aged human's favorite philosophy that things aren't made as well as they used to be, I will die on the hill that we'll never again make movies as good as they did in the 80s. Even I have to acknowledge that we're living in a golden age of horror, and have been for quite some time. It seems like every few months a legitimately great and interesting horror movie crawls out from under the bed. Enter Late Night with the Devil, a deliriously fun gimmick movie taking the creeping dread and subtle descent into horror of the found footage genre and repurposing it through the lens of a 70s late night talk show, right down to being entirely shot in 4:3 aspect ratio. It looks like this. It's a superb little magic trick. The audience knows from the first few minutes of the movie that something terrible happened on this one TV show, but it takes its beautiful time in getting there, painting every nod to the camera, every production flourish with dread and foreboding until shit pops off. And does so with some startlingly good special effects. It's also a proper coming out party for David Dastmalchian, the best freaky looking little guy working in movies today. He's brilliant in this, slowly but surely coming apart at the seams, much like the TV show all around him. Number 9, 28 years later. I am fuming that they didn't wait 3 years to release this movie, because then it would actually have been released 28 years later after Danny Boyle's iconic video nasty 28 Days Later. That movie is still great in its depiction of a UK hollowed out from within by the rage virus, and while the franchise does deserve credit for popularizing fast zombies, the first movie was also filmed on a potato that Danny Boyle found in his garden, and then he stepped on it and then he rubbed it on the screen. 28 years later is the newest one, and in my opinion, the best one of the 28 trilogy. We don't talk so much about 28 Weeks Later. It's fine. It is fine. 28 Years Later is a movie that feels like it should be made now, examining what life looks like in a UK that spent decades being essentially amputated from the world and being left to rot alongside its resident population of hectic snarls Barclays. At a time where the UK has already isolated itself from Europe and the world is traumatized by COVID-induced quarantine, the concept of what kind of tribes thrive in those environments rings much more true than the generic grunge nihilism theming of the original. The film revolves around a brilliant child performance of Alfie Williams as protagonist Jamie, finding himself torn between his insular and subtly cruel island community and the wider country as a whole, between his hanging on by a thread father and his sickness-riddled mother. It is a stunning movie, with its triumph being not just in the New World's horrors and zombie dongs, but in the pockets of love and respect, and the concept that there still could exist the possibility of a graceful dead. Also, that bit with the Rudyard Kipling poem Boots, Boots, Boots is my second favorite bit of filmmaking of the last few years. I said second. I'm going to mention the first one later. Number 8, The Shining. This movie's more broken than most people remember, with Jack Nicholson going from normal, or as close to normal as Jack Nicholson is capable, to him being proper freaky go-nuts bastard on a goddamn dime. Literally, he goes from enjoying breakfast in bed with his wife, to screaming at his wife, to staring out of the window fully mad in literally 8 minutes of screen time. In an age of slow burn streaming TV dramas, that descent is insanely quick, especially for anyone who's read the book like me, because I'm clever. But it's easy to forgive all of this because everything else is just achingly beautiful. It's crafted by Stanley, just 10 more takes Kubrick, so it's a little surprised that everything is note perfect. The set, the performance, the framing, the sexy bears, the soundtrack, the atmosphere. In fact, it's all so meticulous in its horror prestige that there exists an entire separate movie, Room 237, about the conspiracy theories that people have found in the movie's clockwork precision, because Stanley Kubrick doesn't do anything by accident. It rings a little emotionally hollow watching the movie by today's standards, but just fucking look at it. It's a work of art and will be forever and ever and ever. Number 7, It Follows. Horror movies have gone through a great many phases throughout the years. You have the grand operatic horror of the Universal monsters, the unbearable tension of Hitchcock, the exploitative splatter of the Giallo movement, the slasher craze of the 1980s, the terrifying J-horror and K-horror industries in this current age of psychological horror. Thoughtful and beautifully rendered horror movies about things. Look, it's a monster. Is it really a monster? No, it's depression. From properly respected auteurs like Jordan Peele, Nia DaCosta, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, Zach Cregger, so many amazing horror movies of this type have come out in the last decade alone, but honestly, the first prestige horror I remember adoring was It Follows, a nightmare crawl of tension, inescapable dread, and that slightest dash of Scooby-Doo and the Gang monster traps. In a movie exploring teenage sex, the shame that surrounds it, the lasting horror that you can inflict on someone without them knowing, It Follows is about a sexually transmitted curse that renders its victims perpetually followed by a slow-moving but always moving, shape-shifting creature that will kill them if it ever catches up to them. A brilliantly executed, original concept with a huge amount of style, a perfect pace, and a killer soundtrack to boot. Number 6, The Invisible Man. And talk about a movie that's about something. So the original Invisible Man movie, and indeed the H.G. Wells story, is about what unaccountability does to the human soul. The 2020 Invisible Man remake goes in an infinitely more terrifying direction in that it's entirely about domestic violence and abusive relationships. Rather than asking its audience, hey, if you could go invisible, would you derail a train? The 2020 remake asks the audience, what if your ex decided they'd rather kill you than lose you, and what if that ex could be anywhere? That is so fucking horrible. Like Paranormal Activity proved before it, a beautifully effective way to terrify an audience is simply to show them a wide shot and let them know, hey, something's probably gonna happen here, and then just let them Where's Wally that shit? It's not easy to marry a high concept killer with a terrifying depiction of domestic abuse without making the movie feel gross, but Invisible Man pulls it off brilliantly by, instead of following the killer, following solely an amazing Elizabeth Moss, the victim, making for an unflinching depiction of paranoia, PTSD, and the determination it takes to leave an abusive partner who can also go invisible. Number 5, Cabin in the Woods. I love horror so much, and I love this movie so much because all of horror is here, and also Richard Jenkins, who must be protected at all costs. The Cabin in the Woods is a love letter to American horror and a razor-wire sharp examination of what we, the great unwashed, the movie-going terrible mass, gets out of watching pretty young things suffer. Flitting between a group of young people in a cabin in the woods and the facility that's engineering their doom to essentially make horror movies to keep their elder gods from rising up and writing unsubscribe in the comments. Cabin is a tonnage of horror movie tropes that are engaged with and explored, and despite being endlessly self-referential, the movie also somehow manages to be its own dazzling, original, and narratively focused beast, bringing it all home within 90 minutes. And you get an extra star just for that. Just in case you haven't seen this movie, I'm not going to say much more about it, especially the closing 20 minutes, except to say the following. 1, fucking A. 2, please see Cabin in the Woods. And 3, no, seriously though, fucking A. Number 4, Sinners. Between The Long Walk, Weapons, Bring Her Back, Together, and 28 years later, it's been a fucking good year for horror. And that's not even taking into account the best film released this year. One of the best films released this decade at Sinners. Great Ryan Coogly Moogly. In a time when big budget movies are all remakes, sequels, or franchise reboots, along comes Sinners with its brand new IP and astonishing soundtrack that Terry has gotten entirely sick of me playing in the background as we work. Will you go, lassie, go? It's proper vision coupled to expert craft. Like the similarly wonderful Midnight Mass on Netflix, Sinners uses a classic movie monster to explore a number of rich, bloody themes, from the racial tensions of the Prohibition-era Deep South to what eternity means in terms of art, to the role of societal oppression in crafting drop-dead beautiful music. We brought this from home. The magic within music. Oh, and also, it's probably worth mentioning Michael B. Jordan turning in the best performance of the year fucking twice. It's been a minute since there was a movie in the cinema that everyone agreed was good, succeeded because it was good, and created instantly iconic moments. Sinners is that movie. It's the real deal. And that one shot, you know the one I mean, is my favorite bit of filmmaking of the last few years, and already feels like one of the great shots in movie making history. And also some of it shot on IMAX as well. So it's even more beautiful. Fuck me! Number 3, Aliens. Oh, good, we got to the point of Adam's giddy little movies. All the films in my top 3 probably belong in my top 10 movies ever, for a number of reasons. Perhaps they remind me of a specific moment in my life, perhaps a specific person, or perhaps, like James Cameron's Aliens, they just rip ass. Ridley Scott's Alien is good and rips a soupçon of ass. Aliens rips roughly 10,000 times more ass, as Ellen Ripley is coerced into a here we go again scenario that imagines, what if Alien but loads? Everything is better in this movie. There's better corporate villain, better locations, better supporting characters. Game over, man, game over. And it ends with an alien queen fucking bare knuckle boxing match. Ellen Ripley in a power loader is the patron saint of the special kingdom that resides at the intersection of hell and yeah. And before anyone even tries, this absolutely is a horror movie. The scene where Ripley and Newt are trapped in the room with the face huggers, that is the scariest scene in the entire franchise, and it manages to be goddamn horrific the entire time, whilst also not losing sight of also being awesome the entire time. Look into my eye. Number 2, The Menu. You ever finish watching a movie and think to yourself, well, that was made specifically for me. Not everyone has seen The Menu, not everyone likes The Menu, but that doesn't matter because they didn't make The Menu for those people. They made it for me. The film asks, hey, what if the guy who founded Noma descended into homicidal mania? And every single part of this film is up my street. The part of me that loves food. The part of me that is exhausted by the endless intricacy of luxury art's desperation to justify itself. The heartbreaking effects of total burnout of the thing that your quotes meant to do. And worst of all, I'm in this movie. Nicholas Holt's amazing little fucking lunatic, the hyper-pretentious hobby gatekeeper whose barely concealed frustration just boils over with everyone because they don't know as much about his precious little hobby as he does. The first time I watched The Menu, I watched it through my hands because every time Holt was on screen, it was like, oh no, it's every worst aspect of me. Oh dear. This movie is so brilliant. An original, inventive premise with a final showdown between the excellent Anya Taylor-Joy and the excellent Ralph Fiennes that is basically the Alien Queen versus Power Loader smackdown of the fine dining world. The Menu manages to be horrifying, but legitimately one of the funniest films I've ever seen. The moment 2 words, Tyler's bullshit, appear on screen genuinely might be the most I've ever laughed in the cinema. And number 1, The Thing. It's a horror movie, it's an action movie, it's an 80s movie, it's a Kurt Russell movie, it's a social deduction movie. That's pretty much my favorite things. John Carpenter's The Thing is perfect. It's the best horror movie concept ever. A murder mystery at an isolated Antarctic station with a killer that can assume the form of its victims. Throw in a highly quotable script.
Cheating bitch.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Yeah, fuck you too!
You've also got an excellent cast, a brilliant soundtrack, and the main course, the creature effects realized by Rob Bottin and his team that have retained their sublime and horrifying impact over 30 years later. Between this film and Aliens, that's the reason that I have a genuine IRL fear of things that scuttle. These movies did that to me. Thank you. The effects have aged so much better than the subsequent era of CGI, especially in the Thing prequel that maddeningly ditched practical effects for computer-generated ones during production. They literally scrapped production teams' actual work to put in shit CG monsters. Hilariously, John Carpenter's Thing was panned by critics when it first came out, which proves that no one knows anything about anything, because in terms of horror, in terms of movie making, in terms of being a perfect hybrid of murder mystery, slasher, and creature feature, this is as good as it's ever gotten, and genuinely, it might be as good as it ever gets. I love it to death. And those are my favorite horror movies. Why not watch one of them this spooky season and tell me if you enjoyed it or not? Also, what are your favorite horror movies? Let me know in the comments. Happy Halloween, everyone, and get book to work. That didn't work. I'll try a different one. Get hack to work. Hack to work. Get back to boo.